This is Flock and Hive, a place to explore the things you always wanted to know more about, as well as the things you didn't know you wanted to know. And this week,
The thing with mushrooms and medicine, to have human trials, you need a monetary incentive. Pharmaceutical companies, they can't patent the mushroom. So a business isn't going to spend millions on human trials for something that they can't patent. So this tends to be the reason why lots of these things are left in the periphery.
We speak to Alex Kent from Isle of Wight Mushrooms.
hello, and welcome back.
Hello.
We've really enjoyed your comments about the varied topics that we've been discussing, so thanks for that. And we've got another one for you today that we really hope you're going to enjoy. And it's something that's close to my heart, but I'm very much at the start of my journey, and it's all about mushrooms.
The medicinal kind, as we teased last week, not the psychedelics. We're not talking about that just yet. But I'm very new to this. I'm brand new to this. And I know you're quite further along the path than me. What did you want from this interview?
Well, I am, but also it was only really last summer that I started paying attention to mushrooms. So I came across some tinctures in a shop in Cowes where I live that were based on mushrooms, very specific mushrooms I hadn't heard of before, like cordyceps and reishi and chaga. And I got talking to the person in the shop and they told me what they did. And it just really got me thinking that mushrooms have been around since time immemorial, since before us, and will be here way, way after us. And why is it only now that the medicinal power of certain mushrooms is only coming to light, like for a lot of people? I mean, I know if you've been a mushroom enthusiast, you've been into this for years. I was just wondering, why is this not something that everybody needs to know about? Because incorporating certain mushrooms in your diet is quite an easy thing. So I wanted to have this conversation with Alex, who works at Isle of Wight Mushrooms, right in the heart of the island, about which mushrooms we should be looking at, and just to learn a little bit more, how should we take them, etc., and find out really why we don't know as much about them as we should.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I've always thought mushrooms fall into two camps. The disgusting kind that mum used to cook. Sorry, mum. But also, if you even mention mushrooms outside of your plate, people immediately go to, oh, magic mushrooms, naughty illegal drugs, don't they? There's a whole category that has just been completely washed over.
Exactly. There's a whole world in between the jizzy button mushrooms that mum used to cook and magic mushrooms. And it's arguably the most important bit. And yet it's lesser known.
But we find out why, don't we? When you listen to the chat, he explains quite succinctly why that area is just missing.
Yeah.
Every time we come across any of these topics with our guests, I'm just so surprised at how none of this information was available. I mean, obviously there's reasons for that in terms of internet's opened us up to the world and everything, but there is just that awakening that's going on, just wanting more information of how to manage who we are and how we navigate our bodies in our lives.
No, and that brings me to a word which could well be the word of the week.
Word of the week. Word
Yep.
of the week. That is that blankety blank.
That is, yes, blankety blank. That is not the word of the week. The word of the week is phenology, which is the study of cyclical and seasonal natural phenomena, such as when flowers decide to bloom and when birds decide to migrate, etc. It's the study of all that stuff.
All the invisible stuff that we appreciate just is a thing, but we don't actually question what's the force behind it. When birds move together, where they create sculptures in the sky and they just know what to do. There's something invisible that's going on there, but they're absolutely connecting. And most of us, I would hazard to say, just have never considered what's going on below what we're just seeing, because it is so normal to see, but it's really quite magical as well.
Yes, it is. And that sounds like the perfect time to mention the Mycelium network, which is something that I've been very excited about for a while.
But I still haven't really got to the bottom of what it is. So, once and for all, let us have it. Explain it, please.
So, the Mycelium network, what it is a really intricate branching structure that's formed by tiny, thin, thread-like filaments called hyphae, which compose part of a fungus. And they spread throughout their environment, often underground or with decaying stuff. And this serves as the fungus's feeding system and anchoring system. It absorbs nutrients from its surroundings, etc., but also is responsible for environmental restoration. So breaking down pollutants and contaminants in the environment. It cleans up stuff. It cleans up the industrial waste, dead things, environmental hazards, etc. It's such an important part of our world. It's just this incredible network of this communication system of nature that humans don't really consider.
Where you said it's in the environment and it's underground, is it overground as well and invisible?
I suppose in some ways, airborne spores will have something to do with it, yes. But no, you can actually physically see this a lot of the time. Like you just need to sort of dig into the soils and stuff. Look, but while we're talking about the mycelium network, there is a fantastic book that you should read if you want to know more about this. It's called Entangled Life and it's by Merlin Sheldrake. And it really does shine a light on how incredible our world is. And if we could just get back to a bit of instinct about how we live our lives, then we'd be a lot happier and a lot more connected.
Exactly. That's the thing. It was here, like you were saying, it's been here before we came and invented things like computers and robots. But going back to cycles and cycles and your connection to what's going on in nature. Nowadays, it's not crazy to talk about the relationship between your menstrual cycle and the lunar cycle. You know, it's kind of a given thing. We absolutely know scientifically that the tides of the sea is connected with the lunar cycle and the moon. And you know, you go one step further, we are between 60 and 80% water ourselves. So of course we are in that push and pull. We are affected by that cycle, you know, physically. Another interesting fact is that I read this a few months ago. It's largely now being recognized that women invented the lunar calendar because they found in the 60s in Uganda, I think they found this bone that had an etching of what appears to be a 28-day calendar. And then they just asked the question, who needs a 28-day calendar? Who needs that very much specific understanding of what is happening in that cycle? And it is women. So there is a theory or an understanding that periods birthed the lunar calendar for our whole civilization.
We need to have the links for that. I want to read about that, please. Show notes.
I mean, I don't think I've explained it very well, but you get the gist.
But everything is connected. And if hopefully Alex Kent hasn't run away because we've been talking about periods.
Let's hear what he has to say.
About mushrooms, not periods.
So I'm Alex from Isle of Wight Mushrooms on the Isle of Wight. I grow various types of medicinal mushrooms and I extract the beneficial compounds from them and sell a health supplement.
This is very exciting for me because I only moved to the island last summer. I'm so very much a permanent resident who's really getting into everything that's on offer that I had no idea was here in the first place. And I discovered your tinctures, which I'd like you to tell me about. I bought them on the high street in Cowes in Shipmates, and I found that the lion's mane just really had an incredible effect on me and my focus. So before we get sort of stuck into that, can we talk about what medicinal mushrooms mean? Because I think there's a lot of preconceptions around that and the assumption that we might be talking about magic mushrooms and what makes medicinal mushrooms different from normal mushrooms you might buy in a supermarket.
So I would say mushrooms are mushrooms, and you're going to get health benefits from a wide variety of mushrooms, even button mushrooms and oyster mushrooms that you'll find in the store. The difference I'd say between them is maybe certain species, varieties of mushroom have specific uses. So say if you were anxious, felt a little bit depressed, maybe some people take lion's mane because it's got the neuroregenerative properties and it really helps people with the mental focus and clarity. Magic mushrooms also have medicinal benefits as well with anxiety, depression, PTSD, but they've obviously got the psychedelic effect. So I'd say the main difference between medicinal mushroom and a psychedelic mushroom is the fact that you're not necessarily going to feel it in your mental state. You're not going to feel high. but you may feel good in yourself and have like a mild high. So you were talking about people, drinking alcohol. I think lots of people tend to drink alcohol because they're probably a little bit dopamine deficient. So they're just trying to feel a little bit better in themselves.
But that's just it. This is mind-blowing kind of new stuff for me and for a lot of people, it turns out, even though mushrooms have been here since even before the dawn of time and will be here way after we are. The functional, the medicinal aspect is really quite new, and I can see a huge shift in people moving from alcohol to other things and away from things that cause you harm to these things that not only make you feel slightly better, but they've got other benefits for your bodies as well.
So I've been very, very much into nature, the natural world from a very young age. And I was doing lots of bushcraft, hunting for edible wild foods. And I think when you think about it logically, the majority of the human evolution, we were in the woods. Our diet consisted of a wide variety of in-season plants, fungi, whatever was available. Alcohol is relatively new in human evolution. We've lost, maybe with farming, diverse edible plants, and we've isolated ourselves eating more like the wheat and the easy to grow large crops. And then we've lost lots of things like that, haven't we?
Yeah, we've lost the human element.
The turkey tail mushroom is one of the most abundant mushrooms that you'll find in the woods. And it's around a lot of the time. You can find it almost through the winter as well.
In the UK?
Yeah. So logically, I'm thinking if I was a hunter and gatherer and I knew it wasn't a poisonous mushroom, my previous ancestors knew it was good, they found out somehow, and they just continued to use it. And then maybe we evolved requiring that in our system because it was such for a vast period of time. And then now, all of a sudden, the last, 1,000 years is just gone, which is a very short time in, 250,000 years.
What I love about what you said before was that it was around for millennia. We've existed, but we've forgotten how to be human.
Yeah, we've forgotten how to be animals.
Yes! Life should be a lot more instinctive than it actually is, and that we've completely lost sight of that. And mushrooms is a way of getting back to it. So I'm personally really interested to know more. Can we talk about maybe the top 5 or 6 mushrooms that you think we should have in our diets? And I suspect they're the ones that I see on your tinctures. You mentioned turkey tail, chaga. How do you pronounce
Yeah, well, I call it chaga.
chaga?
Maybe it's a posh way of saying it. If you're up north, say chaga.
Yeah, so give me your top 5 and how we should take them and what they give to us. What could they do?
Well, the topic's vast. There's thousands and thousands and thousands, and we know very little about anything. But the most popular ones currently, so there'll be the cordyceps mushroom, the turkey tail mushroom, chaga, lion's mane, and reishi. So the most popular one is probably going to be lion's mane. It's the most well known, followed by turkey tail probably, and then reishi, and then cordyceps and chaga. In the world of mushroom people, they're well known, but I would say the average person would probably, maybe 50% would recognise the name lion's mane.
It's a bit like me and Gewürztraminer in my world, which is our wine from Alsace. So let's start with lion's mane. You mentioned a little bit about anxiety, and I've noticed it for focus. I know there are probably millions of things that it could help with, but what are the key ones?
So the well-known benefits for lion's mane is for anxiety, depression, cognitive function. So if you're feeling a little bit not quite yourself, if you take lion's mane, you will get a noticeably better feeling. It's not a high or a euphoria. I think it's just you just feel better in yourself.
How long does it take? Is that instant or is that sort of building up over time?
Um, well, from experience with people, it's almost within hours.
Ooh,
Yeah, so and I was trading at the festival the summer before last, and I was giving out lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps as free testers. And nearly everyone that I gave them to came back and was just raving about them and buying them, saying, "Oh my god, I feel so much better." They really were.
really?
Yeah, yeah. The main things that it's used for is nerve growth factor. A lot of this stemmed from, there were studies with mice, and it showed that with a daily consumption of the lion's mane mushroom, it actually helped to regenerate the myelin sheath membrane on the neurons. I'm sure it's one of the only naturally occurring compounds that does it. That's probably why it's become the first popular one. The thing with mushrooms and medicine, pharmaceutical companies, they can't patent the mushroom. So to have human trials, you need a monetary incentive. So a business isn't going to spend millions on human trials for something that they can't patent. So this tends to be the reason why lots of these things are left in the periphery.
Cordyceps.
So cordyceps, lots of people take them for energy. They're not a stimulant like coffee. They actually help raise your oxygen blood levels. So they give you more stamina by oxygenation, basically. If you Google cordyceps and Olympic gold medal, I think it should come up. A Chinese ladies running team, and they all smashed the world records, and they all attributed it to the cordyceps mushroom.
Can you use that in the bedroom?
Wow, apparently it's
All kinds of stamina.
yeah. Well, I've got a brief breakdown in my book here.
Oh, excellent.
Where is it? Here you go. Sexual function.
Well, if that's not going to sell it, nothing will. Wowzers.
Produces clear benefits for male sexual hyperfunction when taken over a period of time. Anecdotal evidence and reports from China also indicate possible benefits from female libido. So there you go.
Okay, love that. So cordyceps, fab.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I should just say, with lion's mane, what I've really noticed, just going back to that one, is my focus. I'm loath to admit it, but I think there might be some ADHD tendencies with me. And in the past, I've always been very butterfly brained, starting one thing, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm much better at controlling that. And I'm pretty sure that lion's mane has helped a lot with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I've actually got ADHD.
Have you?
Yeah, so when I take it, I did definitely notice a difference. It definitely helps. But again, it's an evolutionary trait again, ADHD. So
yes, good point.
You don't want to get rid of. You don't need to get rid of it. You need to hone it into something.
Yeah, direct it.
Yeah.
So you can use it as a superpower.
Yeah.
I totally agree. All right. So chaga.
Yeah. So chaga, they say it's one of the most antioxidant-rich substances on the planet.
Wow.
I'm sure you've probably heard it said as well. 1 teaspoon of the mushroom is equivalent to 600 blueberries and antioxidants.
600.
Yeah. And it's a very slow-growing mushroom. That's the only mushroom that I don't grow. It grows in the northern hemisphere, and it requires to be growing in sub-zero temperatures through the winter and on silver birch trees. So what we do is we go up to the Highlands in Scotland and we forage them there.
Oh. So chaga, I see that a lot in kind of coffee substitutes, caffeine substitutes.
I'm not sure why they use it as a caffeine substitute. It does give people energy in a way, but I'd say probably cordyceps would probably be the better one if you wanted to have an effect like coffee, but without the stimulant effect, and possibly you could put a bit of lion's mane in there as well.
Okay, you want a blend basically, I think.
Yeah, well that's why we do the 5 separate ones. We don't tend to mix them all because people can be quite specific in what they want to take them for.
It's good to have the options, isn't it? And
Yeah.
you can create your own blends, I suppose.
And again, when you start blending, you've got to then, obviously, if you have 5 different mushrooms, you'd have to take 5 times the amount to have the equivalent of 1.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Reishi?
Yeah, so reishi's been used forever, basically, in China. They call it the immortal mushroom. It's really good for cardiovascular health. It actually looks like a heart when it's growing. It's got like that real blood red sort of colour. That's another weird thing with the mushrooms. Lion's mane looks like a brain. It's good for the brain. Cordyceps almost look like lungs when they're growing, and they're really good for lung health. So it's bizarre.
Oh my gosh. So what you're saying is that they look like what they can help.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, I mean, I know nothing about this. This is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's just stuff that I've sort of noticed as the years have gone on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Turkey tail?
Turkey tail, it's mainly used, lots of cancer patients use it. And if you look it up in Japan, they actually say that they use it as standard alongside all cancer treatment.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying anti-cancer, like that's not like there's an anti-cancer thing?
I know I'm a bit blasé with it all now
Yeah.
because at first it seems almost impossible. I mean, I was very dubious with it all to start with. You hear all positives until you start taking them. You don't really realise, do you? But we've got multiple cancer patients that are just, well, they're defying all odds. But we can never say that it's
Of
them.
course you can't.
You can never have two of the same person, one that did and one that didn't.
Mm. So would that be preventative as well, do you think?
Yeah, I think lots of people do take it preventative as well. I think, as with all things, it's probably better to have a little bit of everything often rather than a lot of one thing once and not again.
Well, there's a question. Can you overdose on any of these?
Reishi can have like a compiling factor. I did read somewhere that they can be quite toxic on the liver. So if you take reishi for more than a month on a powder, it can start causing liver damage. So it's quite a strong mushroom. So maybe with reishi, just little and often.
Mm. Okay. So that makes me want to ask you, what are the best formats to take it? Obviously, you create tinctures, there are powders, and these days we're seeing gummies as well. I'm sure some are more effective than others. Are some a complete gimmick?
It's a minefield, to be honest. As a general rule, provenance is the main thing. Where's it grown? Because as much as China produces lots of good things, there's a lot of unknown as well, isn't there? Lots of these companies are buying a ton of powder. It's just mystery powder from China. and I'm putting it in capsules and putting it in teas. But that mushroom's probably been grown in poor conditions using probably lots of like hard labour, isn't it? Massive carbon footprint. You don't know what sort of contamination you're getting because lots of these big factories in China, they use the same machines for all sorts of chemicals. So you get lots of contamination between supplements. I was going to say also, when you're looking for extract, you want to have dual extract. I have seen like in other companies, they put triple extracted, but there's no such thing as triple extracted.
Right.
There's methods in extraction. For instance, I use hot water extract, ultrasonic hot water extract. I use the freeze method as well. And I do the same with the water. And then it gets all combined, filtered, homogenized together. And it's all at 35% alcohol. Lots of companies, they sort of jumped on the bandwagon and they're trying to oversell a lot of it.
Yeah, I can see that
Yeah.
happening. So provenance obviously is key. So you grow these medicinal mushrooms on the island.
Yeah, so I was the first UK mushroom farm to be growing medicinal mushrooms and making my own extracts in the UK.
Mhm.
I was the first UK mushroom farm to be growing cordyceps on a commercial basis. And I've been going since about 2019 now.
Mhm.
It was originally an oyster mushroom growing farm.
All right.
It was set up for growing the edible mushrooms, but unfortunately, it wasn't financially viable. And then COVID came, so we got all set up, got ready for selling mushrooms, and then COVID hit and shut all the restaurants down.
Oh,
That was kind of the turning point. I was looking into obviously the medicinal effects of mushrooms, and I was feeling really good from eating the mushrooms that I was growing. There's a guy here on site who sells fish. He's got a fish stall. He's about 70 years old, and he said, "I don't know what's happening, but I've had restless leg syndrome my whole life, and all of a sudden it stopped." And what it was, he was eating oyster mushrooms daily that were from the farm.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that was like one of the early signs back in 2019. And then I started developing the different tinctures with the more harder to grow mushrooms. And then as soon as people were taking them, it sold itself. I'm absolutely useless on social media. I'm more of a hands-on person, really. I'm more, into the farming side of it and extraction. So all of my trade really is word of mouth. And I don't think I've ever had a negative comment from the tinctures. Everyone's always praising them and then telling their family members.
Well, I mean, that's why we're here, is because
Yeah,
I found them and I noticed a difference for sure. And can you grow them at home yourself? I think you sell some kits, don't you, as well?
yeah. So I've got I do a variety of different mushroom growing kits. They're more for the fun of growing them. But yeah, I do a wide variety of mushroom grow kits. If people would like to grow their own mushrooms. It is nice to grow your own mushrooms and make your own extract, but by the time you've done it all, it's probably not worth it. So it's cheaper overall just to use the extracts, because I do it in obviously larger quantities.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. All you've literally got to do is just cut the bag, keep them humid, and then they grow.
Look what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think is the future for medicinal mushrooms commercially? I mean, gummies I've seen now, tinctures, which are brilliant. What I'm loving is the functional non-alcoholic offering. There's a whole new genre of drinks, this whole new breed of non-alcoholic drinks that actually feel like they're doing something.
Yeah.
What do you think is beyond that, if anything?
Obviously, the limit is probably going to be the psychedelic side of things.
Yeah.
But as we've discussed, it's on the turn.
Yeah.
It's more in people's consciousness now. People are starting to realise there's a difference between a psychedelic mushroom, a functional mushroom, or an edible mushroom. The thing is, with all these medicinal mushrooms, they're all edible mushrooms, but some of them you wouldn't want to eat because they're tough and woody.
Right, yeah, okay.
Josie Gibson that did the I'm a Celebrity.
Oh, yeah.
She did a nice plug for us on ITV, and they had a doctor there, and she was basically saying, "Oh, it's all very well and good having supplements, but you can get all you need just by eating a wide variety of these mushrooms." But what she doesn't realise is nowhere sells those mushrooms,
Yeah.
and also those mushrooms like chaga, turkey tail, and reishi. The only way I could describe it would be if you were chewing, I don't know, slimy, bitter bark.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's not going to do it. Mm,
so yeah, no one's going to actually get what they need from eating them because no one eats
no.
them.
I mean, I've done such a 180 anyway. Until last year, I was just an anti-mushrooms, no mushrooms. Sorry, Mum, if you're listening. She used to love to fry button mushrooms in butter just below my bedroom, which, and a lot of
Yeah.
people, most people, I think, I love that smell. I can't bear it. It actually can make me physically sick.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But, since then, I just, I've not eaten mushrooms at all until last year, and I've really turned a corner. Yeah, and I love the fact that there is something good for you in every single mushroom.
Yeah. I mean, as a general rule, they're all very good for anti-inflammatory,
Mm.
but there's lots of crossovers with them. Like we were saying, lion's mane's the brain, mind, focus, concentration. Lots of people take it for like the onset of Parkinson's, dementia. Yeah.
Can you direct people who listening to a place that you'd recommend to learn briefly which mushrooms do what and how much to take, etc.?
There's so much on Google. It's one of these topics that nobody knows about until they know, and there's vast information. Yeah.
So if you had to pick a mushroom for people to start with, is there one if people want to dip their toes in? Not the psychedelic side, obviously the medicinal side.
It depends what you want to take it for. If you're a relatively fit, healthy person, but you maybe felt just slightly down, you might want lion's mane. If you feel good, but you're feeling a little bit like you haven't got too much energy, cordyceps. I personally take about half a mil of all of them every day.
That's in the tincture.
Yeah, and I'll put it in my coffee in the morning. It's probably not the best thing to do. The best thing to do would be put it in some water and sip it through the day. But I'm so busy, I'm just going for ease.
No. I'm wondering if I'm massively overdosing myself. I've got some powder that's kind of a mix because I'm normal caffeine now just makes me feel so anxious and jittery.
So it depends on what powder you're taking.
They make a big point about there being fruiting bodies.
Yeah, so is it fruiting body extract or is it just fruiting bodies?
Don't know.
Because if it's just fruiting bodies, you might as well just eat dried lion's mane.
Okay.
What I'm doing is I'm growing the mushrooms, I'm drying them, and then I'm extracting all the beneficial parts out of that mushroom, and none of the actual mushroom is in the tincture. It's just alcohol-based compounds. Yeah, see, this is another thing I'm concerned about. Do you remember when the CBD got very, very popular? The market got flooded, and what happened was there was poor quality CBD being sold.
Mm.
So if you're a genuine person that say got cancer, you've then gone to Holland and Barrett. Other health food stores are available, but you buy what you think is going to help you. But there's no comparison to that CBD compared to one that's say what £200-300 that you can buy. So you're going to get a lot of people buying sub-quality mushrooms and saying, "Oh, they didn't do anything for me. I'm not going to bother doing them."
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what I worry about.
I've tried several of your tinctures, and the chap in the shop, warned me that they could be quite bitter. I just put them straight under my tongue. Maybe, I don't know, I'm fine with all of them. I quite like it when they're bitter.
There's probably the alcohol in there.
That's it. You've got my number. I'll just drink it straight out of the bottle.
Yeah, yeah.
I found them totally fine, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is. I've pulled out the beneficial parts of that particular mushroom. I've not tried to alter the taste in any way because it's not a beverage.
I think that's just it. It tastes authentic, and it tastes like it's doing something. I think that's why I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
Totally.
and they've all got a unique taste as well, haven't they? They've all got
Yeah.
their own taste.
One's quite citrusy. I quite like it. I think that was
Oh, which one was that? The cordyceps?
I think it was the cordyceps.
Yeah.
So tell us more about Isle of Wight Mushrooms and what people can find there. So you've got your tinctures. Can people come to visit you?
We sell at the door. We have like a little market stall at the door. So if people want to come and have a chat, they can do. But unfortunately, we can't have people, members of the public in the building because it's a production site.
Can they buy online from you?
Yeah, we're mainly an online business. We're on Instagram as well. We don't sell through Instagram. iwmushrooms.co.uk.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, I think it's a good time to wrap up this chat. Alex, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So, mushrooms, what are your thoughts?
And I'm quite disappointed that this is my first and foremost takeaway from this, but I just feel really bummed out by
Why?
what he said about no one wants to patent it purely because they can't make any money. It just goes to show how we are withheld beneficial stuff for all the wrong reasons and pushed non-beneficial stuff, i.e. alcohol, for all the wrong reasons, which is essentially money making. I'm just taking a few minutes to just feel a bit disappointed, really.
Yeah.
But on the upside, it's amazing that it's being talked about now. I'm finding it fascinating. I feel inspired, and I feel there's hope because, as we've said before, I've personally really hit a wall with how I can try and better myself, how I can try and heal for certain things. So it's, pure hope.
Yeah, that's good. I hear you on the why the heck did we not know about this before? And I know lots of people did, but I think the mainstream certainly didn't. But I'm very grateful for knowing it now, because especially where I feel like I'm in a place to actually take better care of myself. And this is actually quite a simple way of doing it.
Yes, exactly.
The bit that blew my mind the most was that certain mushrooms look like the parts of your body that they are going to help with. Because that is so true. Lion's mane looks like a lion's mane. It also looks like a massive brain. We have one in the fridge. Cordyceps looks like lungs. Reishi looks like a bleeding heart. I mean, my goodness, if you think about when we were hunter-gatherers, going back to those days, these visual cues must have been really important for people trying out what would make them feel good after eating it.
So does cordyceps also look like an erect penis?
Well, have a look at it. Let us know what you think. I was quite upset that the mushroom that's good for your sexual appetite and your libido isn't shagger.
Yeah. Excellent shagger. What do you do with the lion's mane that's in your fridge?
Make steaks out of it. It's a really good alternative to a bloody steak, apparently, if you trust the chefs on Instagram.
So you can't have too much of that one then, if you can just willy-nilly whip up a steak?
Well, exactly. I mean, let's talk about how much is too much. Because I think what didn't quite come across in the interview is that too much of any one thing is not great for you. Too many prunes makes you poo yourself. Too much of anything might give you a bit of a bellyache. But it's not like, when you compare it to downing a bottle of wine, there's probably no comparison. Aspirin, you have too much of that, it will kill you. But mushrooms, obviously, you've got to be a bit careful about what you say.
That's the problem though, isn't it? Because it's now being associated with the word medicine, medicinal, we immediately have this inbuilt, oh, what's the recommended dosage? I need to know this specifically. But if no one's doing that because it's not being regulated and it's not being patented, it's kind of biting itself on the arse, really, isn't it? Because I certainly would be put off taking something if it says, oh, may cause liver damage, which is bollocks because I'm happily chugging away on bottles and bottles of alcohol, knowing full well that that is the case. But it's just I hate to say it, the marketing has made me feel like it's a safe area. Isn't that mental?
Yeah, that is totally mental. I'm hoping that this issue is something that's going to resolve itself pretty soon in the UK, because like if you look to the US and what's happening there with marijuana and THC, now it's legal, which is very recent. It's regulated. And so you can go to places and say, okay, this is my issue. I can't sleep. I'm massively anxious, blah, blah, whatever it is. And you say, like, so I'm female, I'm this age, I weigh this much. How much should I take? And they will tell you and they will give you a dose. And that's THC, which is psychoactive. So you have to be really, really careful about it. I think we're just a little way off making it really clear how much you should take of all these things. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be taking them, especially the non psychoactive versions.
What you're saying there is basically THC is being prescribed.
Yes. I think what I'm going to do in between the time of recording this and it going live is I'm going to research this to hell and back. And let's get something on the website that talks about what dosages could look like, whether you're taking them as fruiting bodies or extracts or gummies or powders, etc., all of that.
I mean, it is strange, isn't it? Because it essentially is a food.
Mushrooms are a food, yes.
So why are we even talking about taking too much? You don't take too much apples. You would, like you said, poo yourself, but
That's just it. And obviously, I think what I'm getting from what I've learned is that it's not like alcohol or anything else like that. It's more like, if you don't want to have a bad tummy, then maybe don't have this, like, more than this much a day.
yeah. Alex talks about alcohol-based compounds. Does that mean these tinctures technically have alcohol in them?
His tinctures do, yes, because they're alcohol extracted. Alcohol is used to extract the amazing stuff that's in the mushrooms, much like they do with Rescue Remedy. And perfume. They use alcohol to extract.
So you'd assume that someone who doesn't drink religiously, so someone who's sober, wouldn't probably go near these?
Very good question. I mean, you don't consume them in the way that you would alcohol regularly. You can put them in water and drink it like that, but normally it's like a little bit under the tongue. It's not an alternative for wine or spirits. But yes, I'm pretty sure that the people who really want to avoid alcohol altogether wouldn't have those. But there are lots of other ways of taking them, with powders and gummies and various things.
When he talks about his grow your own kits, do you think it could eventually become like the new sourdough starter that everyone suddenly got really into in lockdown?
Well, it sounds a lot easier, actually. I'm not sure it made it into the actual final interview, but what he said was you literally just need to cut the bag and it grows itself.
And he talks about foraging, but he also grows it. So is it the chaga that he has to look for? He can't actually grow in his conditions.
He has to go and forage for chaga in in Scotland and beyond.
So can A, anyone do it and go and forage it? And B, is it an unlimited resource? Like, can we run out if everyone clocks on?
uh, I don't know, is the honest answer to that. It's probably a lot more sustainable as mushrooms grow very quickly. I think as long as you know what you're looking for, and that's the thing, I think you need to really be with an expert, or be an expert if you're going to forage any kind of mushrooms, because obviously some can kill you.
But isn't that weird as well? That some can heal you and some can just like kill you within seconds. Like, what? What the fuck, nature? Is it survival of the fittest? Just like, don't be a dick.
I think it's because mushrooms understand the universe a lot better than we do, and they have different functions. So some are to nourish us, and some are to do other things that don't have anything to do with nourishing us, but they don't want us to eat them because otherwise there won't be enough of them in the world. Maybe they have a function that's different. Like I'm thinking about like fly agaric, the toadstool mushroom that's red with the white dots. Like that's highly poisonous to humans, but it's obviously there for a reason. We just don't necessarily know what it is. Well, you and I don't.
Yes, we do. It's for the fairies.
Of course, that's where the tooth fairy lives.
And is responsible for every single illustration of a mushroom in any child's book ever.
Yeah, I mean that's ironic because my God, it's it's one of the most poisonous mushrooms there is. There's a problem there. What I found interesting about this conversation was that the effects are felt in a very subtle way, but relatively quickly, unlike something like CBD, which apparently you have to kind of build up in your system. I mean, he was talking about selling his wares at festival and that people were coming back going, I just feel better, and buying more and telling people about it.
I'd be really interested to know if they were taking it to chill out after a heavy one the day before, or as some kind of upper to go and party.
Yeah, I mean, good question. Let's go to the Isle of Wight festival and find out.
Well, I imagine he'll be there.
Yeah, he probably will be.
Well, then that's when we can find out because we're going together, aren't we? With the kids.
We are.
I'm quite excited because some of the lineup of Isle of Wight is a crossover to Glastonbury, which I'm not getting to go to this year. So that makes me feel a bit better. But even having said that, and this is a kind of in the glimmer territory, a couple of weeks ago the lineup was announced and I just got so excited and I ran upstairs and I read the whole lineup out to my husband who was in the shower, and he's just kind of nodding at me like, but we're not going, why are you so excited? I'm like, just really get on board with it. Like it's like a real collective excitement when, the lead up and the rumours, but then there's the fallout of everyone slagging off who's booked.
It sounds like you're just happy it's happening.
Yes, well, because I do get to watch it on telly.
See, there's a glimmer. We haven't discussed that enough recently, having said that we would, have we? But you know what? This is a bit of a weird one. It could be a glimmer, but what's a sort of a long glimmer called?
Constipated glimmer.
The constipated glimmer. But these conversations I'm having with our guests, especially in the more spiritual realm. So after our podcast with Jess last week, and having spoken to a kinesiologist and this random woman that I met on the seafront recently, who is an energy healer in like the most extraordinary ways, and obviously I'll talk about that later. What I'm finding, especially since the Jess conversation, is I've got this lightness. And do you know what it is? I think that I'm less scared of death.
Oh,
I mean, that's not just a glimmer, that's quite profound.
that's a bit heavy to start at the end of episode 7.
Oh yeah, we'll just drop that in. Anyway, talk about that next week. I mean, yeah, but just like it appeared as a glimmer, but it's lingering, and I like it. I'm really up for not being frightened of death.
Well, you know what you're doing. I mean, the whole premise of exercising your spiritual muscle is that it is a gradual thing, and you're opening and you're shifting. And the whole point, if you're doing it, for want of a better word, correctly, is that it is permanent shift, it's permanent change, and it changes your chemistry, it changes your outlook, it changes your reaction to your own thoughts, your reaction to your own fears. So it actually kind of makes sense if you are feeling a bit more mellow because you're finally opening your mind to all these things and allowing it to go there.
Yeah, I think so. And on that note, that sounds like a good place to wrap up this podcast on mushrooms. Thank you very much, Alex Kent, for joining us today in the chat. Don't forget you can read articles based on all of these conversations on our website, flockandhive.com. And don't forget to follow us on our socials at Flock and Hive.
And next week, we'll be talking to Emily Deary about birth charts. But until then, goodbye.
Ta-ta!